This week on the Chef's Cut, we have Jamila Robinson, editor-in-chief of Bon Appétit and Epicurious, who also serves as the East Academy Chair for North America's 50 Best. This week, we're talking about food critics outing themselves.
The idea of anonymity is silly in 2025.
Does the boss at Bon App actually cook her own magazine's recipes?
All the time, especially the baking recipes.
And the truth behind 50 Best.
How is this world's 50 best restaurant? How is this different from like my taco shop down the street?
Full-length video of the Chef's Cut is available on YouTube and Spotify, so be sure to hit subscribe right now so you don't miss an episode. For people who may not know, we met years ago. I was at an event and somebody really wanted to introduce me to you. And before walking me over to you, they pulled me aside and were like, she is the most important figure in American food media. So, I mean, just so everybody knows who we have here today, how did you get started in food journalism in the first place?
I've only wanted to be a journalist. It's my passion. It's the only thing I've ever wanted to do as a profession. And then for my hometown newspaper, the Detroit Free Press, I started as an editor. And one of my sections for the Detroit Free Press was the food section. And I found that the storytelling around food was so engaging. I loved working with the food critics and the food writers and finding you could discover all of these interesting things about people's personalities if you ask them questions about food. And as a writer, it was exciting to find ways to describe flavor. And I found that with trying to write headlines that said more than, oh, this is good, this tastes good, this tastes very, very good, but to really use the language and the power and the flavor and using all of the senses. And that really excited me. And still to this day, my philosophy really is that recipes are a form of storytelling. And I always saw food as this other form of art and this creative pursuit that helped me be as a creative a journalist as I possibly could. So my love of food comes from my love of journalism.
Yeah, I think I love the way you said that. I love food journalism, especially in the long form. I think it's so special. People who understand that beautiful synergy between what chefs like Adrienne and myself are trying to do to use food to tell a story or show a history of something and being able to convey it for us in words for people who can't see it physically in person.
Yeah, it's like you guys translate what we do in a way that we can't. We can't always reach people with the stories. We tell our stories through the food itself, and then the journalists interpret them usually the right way if they're a good journalist, and then they transmit that story to the broader public to be able to articulate what it is we're trying to get across.
Oh, I love that because I think of food as the art form that we all participate in. You can use all the skills you would use with storytelling. It's variations on different themes. Recipes are often that. And then being able to achieve high levels of creativity, especially on the plate, off the plate, in the kitchen, outside of the kitchen. I think when we are telling stories about food, essentially we're telling stories about people. Mm-hmm. We are connecting the dots of our humanity and our expression.
And you've been doing this for so long, Jamila. I mean, Detroit Free Press, now as the editor-in-chief at Bon Appetit. What is a typical day for an EIC at a major food publication like Bon App? What does your day look like?
Oh my gosh.
I imagine it is fabulous. Eating great food all day.
We go places and eat things, but ultimately a day at Bon Appetit is not only working with really smart, really creative people, but a typical day is setting the table on the day. What are people talking about? What stories are people talking about today? And even a day like today, our cookbook author, 𝗵𝗵𝗲 had his cookbook duped by AI. And so we just posted a story about what happens to a cookbook author when AI makes a knockoff and why we should have trusted sources. So it's looking at what is the story of the day and then going into the test kitchen and seeing what's happening there. We are developing recipes right now for our spring issue. And then on many nights, I'm eating at a restaurant. We do our tastings. Today is a Thursday, so we will have a tasting in the test kitchen at about 1 p.m. We'll walk through and give the recipe recipe developers' feedback, and those recipes will show up in the next issue. And I'll go eat in a restaurant, and then we will do it all over again tomorrow. But it is, it's. I love to say that I probably have the best position at Condé Nast because it is the kind of storytelling that really does impact people's lives immediately. But also what I get to do is I get to help interpret how people are eating, how people will manage their pantry, how they will manage their restaurant and travel guides, and being able to give people really concrete service-oriented information that they can trust. Knowing that we create recipes and recommendations that are expert led. These are things that products that we use, ingredients that we support, recipes that we know are tested. So when you go into your own kitchen, they are going to work. We've tried them. So that's a kind of a typical day of what I'm thinking about and how our team is working together. But it's an exciting place.
One
to
thing
work.
that you conspicuously left out, which I find fascinating, is that you report directly to Anna Wintour also.
I do. And it's did you know
Joe's
that?
like,
Jeff?
who is?
I don't know who that is.
How do you not know Anna Wintour? The iconic bob, the glasses, front row at the Joe, come on.
Is she from the South Side?
The best thing about working for Anna Wintour is that she has incredible trust in her staff, and when you work in a place like Condé Nast, our aim is always to be thinking about how we are shaping culture. And it really has made me think a lot about how restaurants shape culture, how recipes shape culture. And we don't always think about food as this cultural shifting tool. We see that with fashion and music or art, or here's the 10 movies that changed the game, and here's 10 fashion trends that changed the game. But for us, it's thinking about like a lava cake. Everybody makes one. You can buy it in a box now. But at some point, some chef had to invent that dish. And that
Michelle Bra, right? Isn't that
Yeah.
who got credit for that one? I believe.
Exactly.
Like, it's like crazy enough. Like
Exactly.
Yeah.
And now we all know how to make one. Wrapping fish in parchment paper
yeah.
or banana leaf, we've had from the beginning of time, but then seeing how it changes through culture and how it changes continents, and how something like a gochujang that maybe 10, 15 years ago, you had to go to a very specific Asian market you can get on any shelf, and it's going to be in a hamburger, or it's going to be on fried chicken. It's going to be all of these things.
Right now, there's artisanal gochujang at Whole Foods. You
Absolutely.
know what I mean? Made by like hipsters in Berkeley.
Right.
But we had to find the ways that those things shifted culture, and that is sort of the beauty of working here with very, very smart people who are really thinking about the future of our different industries. And I want Bon Appétit to have the same kind of sensibility, that whether you're dining in or you're dining out, this is the place where it's going to be your trusted voice.
So pull that back a little bit. How does an idea get pitched and then wind up being something that half of America is cooking a few weeks later? Like, what is that process?
So we have a pitch process where we're thinking about what are the content environments that people are going to be experiencing at a particular time. So for our next issue, for example, is going to come out during the Olympics, and we'll have a Super Bowl, the Olympics, and it's winter. So what are some themes that we can start to pitch around, knowing there will be significant cultural moments that are happening at that time? And so we try to forecast what people are going to be thinking about and talking about, and then we will sit in a room. People will send us pitches, whether that is internal or external, and we will debate and brainstorm and then come up with a set of stories and recipes that will speak to that cultural moment. And then we will also look at our archive. Bon Appetit has the world's largest archive of recipes. We have 60,000 dishes in our recipe archive that you can find on our app and on our website. And so we also want to be sure that we are looking at creating menus that will go along with the new recipes. So if we're thinking about great new recipes for the Super Bowl and how to get through, your game day season, we also want to pull back and sort of look at, okay, what were people making for Super Bowl 50 and Super Bowl 40? And when was the last, what city is it going to be in?
I love that. I love those when you get into old recipes. And I love when like Bon App and, some other ones they have where you can dig into the old recipes. And I love when you see the ones like, oh, this is from, this in 2003. And it's a roast chicken dish. It gives it time and place. And I think that's so neat.
Yeah. And so when people think about our recipes that are coming in 2026, I would love for them to look back 30 years. Oh, what were they doing? Oh, the Super Bowl was in San Francisco. Here's why they made these particular recipes.
Getting into recipes, I think one of the things, during the pandemic, I was a stay-at-home dad for a year and a half, trying to get my restaurant open. And so one of the things I would do is I was cooking more at home than I ever had in my life. So I probably cooked, 20 meals a week at home. And so my wife would just go through a Bon App or go through any other food magazine, and she would just rip out recipes and give me a stack and be like, hey, I want to try these. And I'd be like, okay. And I'd just cook them. I didn't do a lot of recipe cooking before that, out of magazines and cookbooks. And so I would just cook, probably 15 meals a week out of recipes. Wow. And so it was really interesting, just trying out recipes for people. And it's I think I'm a pretty adept cook. And so I could get through the knife work and such. But this is one of the questions I always thought about as I went through, just tons and tons of recipes. So you said you have a tasting later today, right?
Yeah.
When you're sitting in there and they pitch you this recipe. They're like, this is our chicken thigh orzo, roasted carrot dish. And they're like, it takes 45 minutes. Are you sitting there and being like, all right, cool, clock starts now. You have 45 minutes. Get me this dish up. You know what I mean?
Right,
and putting them on it. Because sometimes I was like, the timing on these recipes is really good. And then sometimes I was like, I am hauling ass and I am cranking. And I got this done by the wire, but you got to find me. Who else?
Joe, are you in the kitchen with a stopwatch?
Are you with the timer? It sounds like Joe has the one.
Yes,
the one
of course
with the
I
timer.
am. I am. I'm like, all right, this says 45 minutes. I'd be like, all right, it's 4:45. We're eating dinner at 5:30. I have to get this up at 5:30. You know what I mean? In my mind. So I'm going. I got 3 things going at once. I'm knocking out the knife work. It's sometimes it was a push, and I was like, who else is knocking this out in 45 minutes? And I was like, I want to go to this test kitchen and stand next to this guy and be like, all right, set the timer, let's go.
Okay, well, we'll have to invite you to the test kitchen. But I think but you raise a really good point of being able to create a recipe and make a recipe that will function for most home cooks. That's who our audience is when we're thinking
really
about
hard.
Those. Yeah, and especially, we're very experienced cooks. Our test kitchen recipe developers are very experienced chefs. And so thinking about what will the home cook experience, and that's why we have cross testers to come in and give us feedback about the recipes. And, I can maybe make something in 15 minutes that we might say takes 30 because I might have a knife skill or a baking skill that half of our audience may not have. But I think what we want to do at Bon Appetit is give you recipes that you can cook through your lifespan. And of course, they will become easier the more you make them. Yeah. And in some cases, the recipe, there are times that you don't need that recipe anymore. You know it by rote. Sometimes you might clock in to see, the no-knead focaccia, is it half a teaspoon of salt? How much salt goes into it? But I think, we are trying to help upskill our audience. And I will also say, we also know that we make recipes for people who we want people to like cooking them, to be excited about making them. So if it takes a little longer, because there was a joy in the result, you're not, oh my gosh, this recipe took me 2.5 hours. I make macarons during the holidays and I never think about it, but it's a 3-day job.
Yeah.
Right.
But I don't
I
think
always
about
tell-
it as much
And
because
that's
I
the
really
thing.
like
people,
them
like
and
the
enjoy
first
them.
time you make a recipe, follow the actual recipe.
Yes.
Follow the steps, follow the order, follow the measurements, all that. And then you can start to freestyle. But the first time you make it, you have to follow the recipe, because then you won't know what you can speed up or swap out until you know what the final result is supposed to be. And doing the cookbook testing, Joe and I have talked about this a lot. Like, I told him I tested all the recipes several times through the editing process, but also sent them to home cooks.
Yes.
With different skill levels, and farmed them out. And then there's a community bulletin board over here in New Jersey that they love to test recipes. Here's 12 recipes to test. And they were sending me notes, sending me pictures. So things that weren't on my radar for how to describe these for a home cook completely changed how I wound up writing the recipes for it.
Absolutely. We want to be sure that we have recipes for people in different parts of their lives, and then they can continue to upskill as well.
Sometimes we'll get the requests from magazines where you want a recipe from the restaurant, right? And they're like, give us a cook-friendly version. And you're like, Jesus. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, it's like, I got to scale this backwards. I got to scale this backwards, where it's like, I go from, it's like, okay, they're like, we need a home-friendly version of the pork ribs. It's like, well, one, this takes 3 days to make in the restaurant.
Right.
2, we make 120 racks at a pop. So you're like trying to scale everything backwards. And because I like, I've loved, food magazines and recipes. It's like, I'm always like trying to be really meticulous about it, because I'm like, I really want it to work. You know what I mean?
Do you test it once you scale it down?
No, I just like really am like thinking about it. I'm like, okay, yeah, this will work. And then trying to figure out, I'm like, what's a reasonable ask of a home cook to do this? You know what I mean? I can't be like, okay, cure this for a day and then roast it the next day, and then confit it in pork fat for 3 hours, and then let that sit a day. Then take it out of that pork fat. There's nothing else you're going to do with that pork fat. Save it for the next time you do this. Hopefully it'll be soon. But, and I think so. It's always kind of funny. Like, people come to the restaurants like, oh, can I have this recipe? And it's like, yeah, you can, but it's like, I might as well, you know what I mean? Like, just write it in Chinese. It's not going to
It's like, do you want to make 200 zucchini fritters?
Oh my gosh. Oh, a zucchini fritter. Oh, that sounds, I'm so hungry now.
The ones at Rosemary are so good.
Oh my gosh. So delicious.
And I listened to that Bake Club episode with I think you guys are doing, what is it? Black Forest Pavlova?
Black Forest Pavlova.
Yeah. I think I'm making that.
But, it is fantastic. It's a little boozy. But I think, especially when it comes to restaurant recipes, it's a different audience. So that's why we think it's really important to collaborate with the chefs, and not just say, here chefs, scale it down, but here, chef, can you work with us and let's develop a version of this recipe that we not only know is friendly for the home cook, but we can incorporate different kinds of techniques, or there may be products that we recommend or that you recommend that someone might want to incorporate their kitchen. And that gives us a lot of opportunity to be sure that a recipe can evolve, that is going to be successful, because that's ultimately the goal. We want people to have things that not only are successful, but they're going to love to eat, and they're going to want to cook it again.
And this is only a part of what you guys do at Bon Appétit. So the upskilling, the giving people recipes to use throughout their lifetime, I love that. But it's only a part. Like, you also do a lot of new restaurant lists and dining guides and recommendations on where to go. And one thing that chefs always ask, and people ask in general, like, how do these chefs and restaurants get onto BA's radar? How does Jamila hear about these places?
Well, I am a restaurant person, but for the process for the Best of Restaurants list, we have a team of scouts who are going out to restaurants every day for a good period of the year. We start almost as soon as Best New Restaurant closes, which is always in September. We start on the next one. And so we're looking at restaurants that are opening. I think it's really important to have a team of local experts. So you will see writers from different cities giving us their recommendations. And then we'll put all of those in a database and then sit down with all of the editors. And we think about, okay, which restaurants are really moving and shaking? Which restaurant do we want to see more of? And we kind of set some criteria, and we are going out and scouting, and then letting the editors kind of pick the ones that they really think deserve that recognition. It's a process. Creating a dining guide is really not only giving people a great set of recommendations, but it's also giving them a travel guide. As a scout and a restaurant person, I'm always thinking about, are there dishes I haven't seen before? Are we going to be talking about this restaurant? Are restaurants like this going to be popping up in every part of the US? I said in my restaurants column this year that there are things, some of these factors will separate a really good neighborhood restaurant from a really good national restaurant from the best of the best that you will see show up with 2 or 3 Michelin stars, or will atop a 50 best list, or those things. And a lot of it is subjective, right? We all have different palates, different taste levels. I love a 3-star 20-course sit me down and feed me all day kind of restaurant, but I also love a hot dog. And I love fries. So do I get the same amount of joy from like eating a Coney Island hot dog as I do with my 3 Michelin stars? Everybody's going to have a different factor, but I think there's this, what separates the really great restaurants are restaurants with the ability to change culture, where it starts to change the way people cook, or they change the way that they build a menu, the way that they are using ingredients, or the way that they are thinking about farming or sustainability. Those are really getting into like other echelons of restaurants. And so to be on the Bon Appetit Best New Restaurants list, we think those are the restaurants that really have the potential to be change makers. But they're also delicious, great places to eat, take a family, take a friend. And that can really change a neighborhood and change travel for people.
So I totally get how you guys in the criteria, and I think it's, makes total sense. But I'm always curious, and I think a lot of these chefs out there ask, like, I'm in a big city, so it's like we have lots of people. You come to Chicago, you can text 100 people on where to go. Detroit, same thing. But, if you're the chef and you're in a place like, you're in Dubuque, Iowa, and you're like, I think I opened this incredible restaurant. I think it's really good, but I don't have a food writer. You know what I mean? I don't have anybody coming here. Like, how are they getting to you? You know what I mean? Are they sliding in the DMs and they're like, Jamila, please come to, Dubuque, send someone to Dubuque, send anyone, I'll bring you a plate, like whatever it is. Like, how do those, the Bentonville, Arkansas, those little places, like how do they get on your radar?
That's why it's so important to have a nationwide network of experts, so that the Dubuque, Iowas, the Bentonvilles, suburban Cincinnati, by having a network of people who are in cities, they can give us the best of their region. It's one thing to be in a Dallas or a Houston, but where do you go to eat in Marfa, Texas? Well, you have to have somebody who's local. Or what's the best burrito in San Antonio? You need a local expert to really give you that insight. And then because they know their communities so well, we can pull those people together. And then when the editors are doing our scouting, then we're making visits. Then we can make visits to those restaurants. I think social media has made it a lot easier for us to know about more restaurants. And making those connections, networking, a lot of it is okay. But it's also thinking about, okay, where maybe the chef had staged at a restaurant in New York, and now they're going home to go open a restaurant in their hometown. But by having that local network, I think is what really can set us apart. A lot of what the scouting process for Best New Restaurants does is allows us to forecast trends and allows us to forecast talent. And that can be in really small places, or that can be in big cities, because look, it's also really difficult to stand out in a city like New York or Chicago or LA. So how do you find the spots that will stand out that maybe don't have a huge press budget, for example, a huge PR budget to tell you, hey, come here, come here, come here. No, it might be, oh my gosh, I was staying at a hotel, and this hotel restaurant is amazing. They're doing some really interesting things. The chef came up from CIA in Napa and is now in Bozeman. We can start to watch those patterns, and that a lot of that is from a network of relationships.
So when this network hits you and they're all like, let's say me and Adrienne are your local, Arkansas news crew too. And we're like, yo, you got to come down here. We got this spot in Little Rock that's just going to blow you away. Then it's like, once you get the final and you're like, okay, these are the 20 final. Now, are you like flying around and you're hitting all 20 and you're like, these are the 11, like line them up? Like, I like to imagine it. And maybe this isn't the way you do it. Maybe it could be next year. I'm just throwing it out there. Everybody walks around a room and it's like best in show style, like a dog show. You're like first, second, third, best in show. That's how we're doing best new restaurants this year. And you just walk out of the room and then everybody's like, oh my God, that was incredible.
That would be one way to do it. I think we like a little bit of collaboration around the decision making. Well, what's important is that we are thinking about restaurants that people are going to love to go to, that we really believe that are great restaurant experiences. I mean, that ultimately what we're trying to do is provide the service.
But it's interesting to know this, because there's also like a misconception in the food industry that it's like, if you hire this PR company, you're going to get on this publication's radar. There's this misconception that PR drives it. And I think that's, even people who don't work in the food industry are, ask sometimes like, how does this restaurant get so much coverage?
You hear it all the time.
On
They're
both
like,
sides
it's all
of it,
PR.
yeah.
It's all PR. It's like,
Yeah.
no, it's an awesome concept.
We kind of forget that sometimes the restaurant is really good.
Yeah.
And everybody
Right.
has to go there, sometimes, or it might be a restaurant that's getting a lot of buzz and you go and it's magical. Like, I think sometimes we forget that chefs and people in hospitality, their work is making magic. And sometimes that magic, extends beyond the restaurant. So it wouldn't, and look, we all know restaurants that have never hired a PR machine and we go to all the time, or that, that may stay packed. They've never had, a PR person for a day. I think, I'm not a publicist. And that's a completely different skill. But what I do is tell stories and want to tell people, not only give people great recommendations, but also give people great stories. And I want to be sure that I'm saying that they really play a supportive role in helping us cultivate those stories. But it's not by any stretch, I think, and to speak for Bon Appétit, it's not a driver.
Yeah. When people ask me, they say like, well, this restaurant gets all the coverage from all these places, from different publications, from different awards. They're like, that's got to just be PR. I'm like, no, the restaurant is actually really good. Have you been?
Really good.
And you don't realize, like, if you only read about a restaurant once, it may not drive you there yet. If you read about it 2-3 times and it's getting crossed in all these other guides and mentions, then it's probably going to get your butt in that seat.
And I think it's a double-edged sword of it sometimes too, right? I remember like when 𝗏𝗏𝗄𝗏 was opening, I was like, if there was a futures betting market where I could bet futures on this place to win every award ever, I was like, I would hammer it. I would hammer it and I would be the richest person on earth. And it's not like, it's like, because the concept was brilliant. It's two incredibly talented chefs. Mm-hmm. It's an incredible story. It's so unique. It's so special. And it delivers from sun up to sundown every day. They kill it. So it's like, it makes sense. And I think, though, the other side of it is like, there's, in chefs and restaurateurs, we get way too caught up in like, well, you have to be on that list. You know what I mean? Or you have to be, it's like, not all restaurants can be a world's 50 best restaurants or can be a best new restaurant. And I think, at the end of the day, the only truth is like, you're a busy restaurant that your community likes and supports. And so you get to keep being a restaurant, or you don't. And if you get those lists, you get those accolades, hey, that's great. That's awesome. That's a great thing. And they're great that they exist because they drive people to our city, to our industry, to these things. So they have to be there. And I love reading them. I look forward to them every year.
Ultimately, we want you to have the best kind of experiences. And this is a way to entertain ourselves. And so you aren't thinking about what always happens to restaurants where the focus is on the cost. and not the experience. And sometimes I think we put those things, a world's 50 best restaurant, like, oh, how is this world's 50 best restaurant? How is this different from, like, my taco shop down the street? Well, your taco shop down the street is fabulous. It's wonderful. But these restaurants, this is like Roger versus Nadal fifth set tie break. This is Beyonce live and you're sitting on the stage. These are really different kinds of experiences. And I think when we start to contextualize them that way, then it also helps with the story. We can tell, chefs can start to talk about what kind of experience you are going to have at their restaurant.
Jamila, we didn't even really get into the fact that you are the freaking head of North America's 50 Best. I mean, so you have these two positions with these two huge entities that really shape the conversation around dining of all different levels, high end, low end, and in between. But Jamila, like, you're scouting all these restaurants all the time with both frames of reference in mind. So how are you looking at the restaurants when you go to visit them and you're like, this is a 50 best, this is a BA? What are the criteria that you're looking at them with?
Yeah, well, to Joe's point, they're serving different functions, and they're different functions, they're different experiences. And I chair I'm the Academy Chair for World's 50 Best for USA East, so that is Canada all the way down to the Caribbean, and then North America. I have the Northeast region, which is New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Washington, the Mid-Atlantic. So what are the restaurants that, again, that are kind of shaping the trends? And I think you're going to see that whether that is Bon Appetit or that is a restaurant that could end up on a 50 best list. But there are different expressions because you're going to have things that are more important from a regional perspective. I always think about it, it's kind of like the Olympics. You have sort of best of, your region, best in your nation, and then here's the best in the world. And like, it's almost like sending people up from the national championships to the world championships to the Olympic Games. And there are different restaurants that function differently. It's like this is a incredible place because I am traveling to Spain or Italy or Thailand, and here are some really interesting restaurants, but they're the things that I want to travel to. These are the restaurants that are going to be setting the trends that you're going to see in those local markets. But you have to travel to see that. You have to see how people are eating all over the world to see if what's happening in the US is actually starting a trend. Think about what's happened with African diaspora restaurants. Tatiana kind of blowing everybody out of the water a few years ago. And yes, that happening in New York and in the US, it becoming a one to watch for 50 best, but also kind of shaping the clubstaurant scene that we started to see all over the US. So we can put together a list that said, okay, these are the best of the clubstaurants, or this is what you should expect at a clubstaurant. But then also on the other side of that is, let's talk about the reshaping of fine dining that is happening, and what are the inspirations that people are having from the African diaspora, whether that is Caribbean, West Africa, and how does that influence starting to shape restaurant scenes in other parts of the US and other parts of the world? As we're scouting, you're thinking about how is that restaurant functioning in a community, and then how is that community growing, and what is that impact it has on culture and society. And then that's the story that Bon Appetit is best positioned to tell you. Here's how food shapes culture and society, because we are seeing all of these things that are happening in Dubai, in Kigali, in Thailand, because it's also showing up in Miami and Austin and Montana. Then we can start to say, here's how these global trends are being shaped. And here's how it's going to show up on your plate, and expect to be buying this kind of spice in your grocery store in 2 years.
What do you think about the trend of food critics kind of outing themselves? Like when you were at the Philadelphia Inquirer, were you completely anonymous or trying to be?
Well, I was the food editor at the Philadelphia Inquirer, and Craig Laban is the food critic who was anonymous. And I'm not a fan of anonymity. I think that anonymity is, I mean, first of all, it's a kind of it's performative. It's not. Everybody knows any restaurateur.
1,000%.
Any restaurateur worth their salt knows who the critics are, knows who all the influencers are. I know everybody in the restaurant industry not only knows my face, but they know that I'm allergic to peanuts. They know. And so why do we kind of pretend? And I'm also like a Black woman who wears bright clothes. Like, I don't own any Black clothing, right? And so I'm going to stand out no matter what. It doesn't matter if I order every dish on the menu. They know. So why are we performing
You're not
and pretending?
flying under the radar. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, and not only that, like the idea of anonymity is silly, I think, in 2025 in the digital era. And second, and I think thinking that there's going to be some sort of special treatment that the critics get that you aren't going to experience, it's just not possible, right? I mean, because the 𝗏𝗵𝗲, the prep has already been done. And imagine like, oh my gosh, let's go, switch out the chef and like make sure that this is, I'm going to cook this myself. And then slowing down the service when the critic is in a hurry. It just doesn't make sense. From my perspective, I'm not a food critic, but I would say people know what I like, and they know I kind of, people know when I'm coming into a restaurant. But I also kind of believe that, like, you would never go to an art show in a disguise, right? You would never go to okay, I'm going to go to Coldplay concert and I'm going to dress up as not myself.
As a music critic, yeah.
Right. I mean, and again, thinking about restaurants in the same space that you would use other kinds of art. And I think, give me the show. Give me the opening night. Right. You go to the theater, a Broadway show, it's opening night. Everybody's there. All the critics are there. They've seen the show, right? They've seen it in previews. And then you go to opening night, but it's still another 30 days or 90 days before you give a review.
Right.
I don't think anonymity serves a purpose anymore. I don't know if it ever did. Like, from my perspective, I don't know if it ever did.
The weird thing to me about it too is like, I'm very much a chef where it's like I'm in the dining room a lot. You know what I mean? I talk to everybody who comes in. It's a big deal. They come into my restaurant. Yeah. They work hard. They spend money. They can spend it anywhere. They spend it with me. And I like meeting people. And then it's like, you have like a critic come in. It's like, so am I not supposed to talk to you? Because that's not what I do. That's not how I run my restaurant. But now I'm supposed to pretend like I don't know who you are and you don't know who I am, even though we're both here for the same fucking reason. Like,
why are we playing this game?
Yeah.
Like, could we stop with the cat and mouse and just be like, hey, you're here. This is what we're doing. This is cool. I'm here so you could ask me questions that you may have about the restaurant you're sitting in that I built.
Yeah, and if you don't like something, sure, like, tell me that too.
Tell me, and I think journalism and restaurants are very similar. Like, there are some days that some things work and some things don't. But I don't pretend, and I think it's really important that we give the restaurants and the hospitality professionals a lot of grace. This is why we go back. Sometimes, some things just don't. It may be an off night. Sous chef called in sick, but. It's like going to a Broadway show and the understudy is there. Are you mad at the show?
Right.
Right. No, you go back again. And I think even that kind of experience is so rare because you all are professionals. You're really good at what you do. And I think that sort of, okay, we're going to pop in and like surprise. There's a chef, gave me a bunch of grief because I really, really like their restaurant and I just go there a lot. And sometimes, I just go sit in the corner and by myself and have a meal. And one day she saw me leaving and she was like, oh my God. And then sent me like a text message. It's just like, don't do that. And I had to let her know that, hey, I'm not working.
Right. I'm just enjoying myself.
I'm just enjoying because I just want to have that experience and the pressure of it being like review season or award season, that it puts on the kitchen of like, oh my gosh, and are they going to like it? Do they like everything? Is everything good? And I think that can be a challenge of just rather than just doing what you do every day and really believing, because ultimately it's all going to be what the chefs put out and how it's brought, and that experience that you're going to give that to everybody else in the restaurant anyway. The sort of mythical special treatment.
Right. And if you can't give it to everybody else in the restaurant, then it doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? And I think any reasonable critic can look around the room and tell, like, are other people having fun here? Are other people having a good experience?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like either like, it's like if you're like, oh, I'm the only one having a good time in the room and everybody else is loving this, or like I'm the only miserable asshole in the room and everyone else is loving this. Like maybe I need to give it another shot.
I need to give it another shot.
Like,
Yeah. I think it also takes so much of the pressure off of restaurant operations, because you've got, used to have that room in a restaurant that all the waiters had to know who's the editor of the food section, who's the critic, who's this person, who's the staff writer. It's like they had to memorize 50 faces
exactly
for national and local publications. So, even if you weren't the critic at Philadelphia, they knew that you were the editor there.
Yeah.
So, they're still clocking for you anytime you walk in a restaurant.
Quick story. One day, Craig Laban and I went to dinner at a 2 Michelin star, and he made the reservation under a fake name, which I don't agree with, because I don't think I could ever like pay a $1,500 tab with a card that does not have my name on it. But and I walked in, and we're having a meal, and it was a little bit uneven. This is like right after the post-pandemic. This restaurant had reopened, and the restaurant just was not staffed at the level that it needed to be. And about halfway through the meal, the server comes over, and they're literally sweating. And then the chef came out, and it was like this nervous interaction. It was like, oh my God, and it was like not a review. It was like, it was going to be a review meal, but it was and I just thought about how much easier would have been for them if we had said, hey, we're coming in for first visit, and like sort of to take the pressure off, because I don't feel like we should be trying to put everybody on why would we put them on the spot? The restaurant gets to decide the experience that you want to have. And I think we should experience it from that perspective.
So we're going to get into a little bit of turn and burn. So we're going to ask you some questions to get your first thought answers on these. You ready?
I'll try to keep them tight.
Okay. Do you ever cook recipes from Bon Appétit?
Yeah, I cook them all the time, especially the baking recipes, because I think Shilpa and Jessie, with what they're doing with Bake Club, is so exciting. And I really do think that they create some incredible recipes.
All right. So who's got next? What cuisine is poised to get their flowers? Caribbean? All right.
Caribbean.
Heard it here first.
Hands down, Caribbean.
That's funny. We were talking about that yesterday.
Yep.
Me and Adrienne. I was like, I feel like, we were like, that's like happening right now.
Caribbean is, the moment started last year. And as I was saying before about sort of African diaspora and then how does that manifest? But I think Bar Kabawa, Paul Carmichael's restaurant in New York, I think is one of those change maker restaurants where you really start to think about Caribbean as a cuisine, with all different kinds of techniques that he's using. I think what's important for me is to see that there are dishes that are at that restaurant I haven't seen before. And so
that's
here's
number one on my list of places I want to go to.
Yeah,
like,
new dishes, new ideas. I don't know what this ingredient is, or I've never heard of this sauce before. Okay, then there's a different expression, and it made me want to go and revisit the Caribbean. Oh, wait a minute, I haven't been to enough islands to know what this story is about these particular flavors. And then here's this really innovative expression of dishes. But it's not just bar 𝗵𝗵𝗂. There's a Haitian restaurant called 𝗕𝗲𝗵𝗵𝗳 that is in Montreal that you're thinking about a lot of those kind of dishes. Gregory Gourdet, obviously, with Maison Passerelle and Cannes. But there are a lot of restaurants that are coming online, not only here, but also in the Caribbean, with chefs using that influence and then making new dishes. And I think that's what is on the horizon, and you're going to see them everywhere, I think.
Now, fork it or forget it. So this is, you like it, you don't like it. Detroit pizza.
Oh, fork it. I mean, there's no greater pizza, right? I mean, What's your Detroit pizza spot? Okay, Buddy's if I'm on the east side, Jets if I'm on the west side.
Oh.
So it really depends on like what part of town you're on. But old school. I am old school. Detroit pizza is like the cheese, the crispy size. Eat it with a fork, the crunch. I mean, it's yeah. Eat it with a fork. Detroit's still wildly underrated in my opinion. We put the world on wheels and gave it a soundtrack.
Yes,
I love living in New York, but Detroit is always home.
Okay, last one, Jamila. What is your ride or die ingredient? You always have, longtime favorite, always in your pantry, city to city, wherever you've lived, you always have this ingredient.
Vanilla bean.
Ooh.
Vanilla beans. I always keep a stash of vanilla beans. There's one in my purse right now here in the office, just in case I need to slice that soldier open for something. Just right into that afternoon coffee, huh? Well, you never know. Right. I know. I always keep a stash of vanilla beans. I buy them in bulk, because they're expensive, and the prices change with the market. Sometimes it can cost the price of gold. You better be careful telling people you're carrying vanilla beans on you. You know what I mean? That's like walking around with a Rolex in your purse. That's a dangerous statement to make in the public. I also give them away at the holidays. I give them away as gifts. Sometimes, like especially if I'm giving a cookbook, I'll wrap up 10 vanilla beans in a little container and give those away. But I always keep a stash of vanilla beans. It is the greatest ingredient. It is the most important flavor, the most popular flavor. But it really, I love it when making like a crème brûlée or like a souffle, and like you get like that slight crunch from the vanilla beans, or like you make ice cream and you get the vanilla beans and you see them pool all over the place. I love a vanilla bean, so I always get a stash.
Jamila Robinson, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, what a pleasure. Thank you for your time. You are one of the busiest people in the business. You're doing so much, and just an absolute honor to have you on. Great talking to you.
Thank you so much. It is an honor to be here. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
That's it for this week's episode of The Chef's Cut. Be sure to subscribe wherever you're listening, especially if you're watching us on YouTube, where you can find full-length video of each episode. And be sure to follow us at The Chef's Cut Pod on IG. For Joe Flam, I'm Adrienne 𝗔𝗵𝗲𝗳𝗀. This has been The Chef's Cut, Life Beyond the Pass.